The opinions expressed on the program you are watching are not necessarily those of Shaw Cable Systems or of the station. Through our access policy, we provide the opportunity for community groups and individuals to express their points of view.
The Road Trip is driven by your neighborhood Cooper Medallion tire dealers. More than 40 Manitoba locations. Online at coopertire.com. Michael Clark here for The Road Trip, and it's part 2 of our visit to DMK Customs out by Lockport, Manitoba. And you know, whether you get into something like this satin black, beautiful old Ford, or you get into full-on customs, you have to remember there's a lot of work that's done. Even, of course, to go to satin finishes, but even if you take a close look here, you notice the well, basically looks like grandmother's doily has been put in there. It's the little effects like that that really make all the difference. But the other thing that really makes the difference is having somebody who really knows how to build your dream. So whether you want to go for something like this truck here, or go for full-on custom with mirrors underneath it at the car show, DMK's the guy to talk to, and Pete's got some really neat stuff for us to take a look at today. Let's go take a look. Well, Pete, how you doing today?
Okay, good. Good.
You know, there's something I noticed when I came up on this, and then I took a look over at the one that you got the chopped top on over in the corner, and is it my imagination, or are these fenders actually wider than stock?
Yes, they are. They've been widened 2 inches. What we've done here essentially is taken a 54 Chevy truck and put it on a 1982 Chevy half-ton chassis. Now the chassis on this truck, you know, everybody knows what old Chevy half-tons look like. The body falls off them.
Well, they're narrow chassis, yeah.
Well, but the bodies tend to rot off them. So what this guy figured is would be really cool to have the durability and the reliability of a Chevy half-ton powertrain and frame with an older body on it. So that's exactly what we've done. But to do that, we had to widen the old sheet metal 2 inches in the fender area. And what we did is we took a slice in the top here and then came across and then down here. So the headlights are a little bit different, a little bit further out. That's the only real noticeable difference. But we've tried to do it in such a way that it still looks natural. And the reason we had to do that is the track width with the wheels and tires that he's chosen is a little too wide for the old sheet metal. We brought that out because I've seen it done without widening the sheet metal, and it kind of looks like you tried a little too hard and it didn't quite work. But this, what we tried to do, like I say, is to keep things looking natural, and I think we've pretty much achieved that. Not it wasn't an easy thing, actually. You look at these fenders and they don't look really much different, although they are a little bit wider, but we've also repositioned the wheel opening on the side and we've shortened the back. And there's actually quite a number of hours in these, and I'm not saying that to brag, I'm just saying that to make things work sometimes, those little details. I think the guy that to me that said it best was Foose, when he said, when you're doing a modification, people shouldn't be able to come up and say, oh gee, that's cool, look at what he did there, or he flared the wheel well. If it looks like he did nothing, then you've accomplished something, because it looks like it was meant to be that way. And that's very much what we tried to do with this truck, and what we're trying to keep the flavor of this truck, so it looks like something that grew that way.
You know what I do like here is the way that you've gone with the new school chassis, because the great thing about that particular chassis you're using, used from 73 to 87, is that there's also a lot of improvements that can be made to that chassis for handling. So this could actually be even better than the 82 type of handling that you get with it, and there's a huge aftermarket for it.
Oh, absolutely, and there's no limit to what you can do. There's spindles out there, drop spindles, there's spring kits, there's airbags, there's anything you want to do. And like I say, these parts are so common, they're everywhere, they're cheap. Because of the amount of them that have been sold, and supply and demand obviously you know, is great for that. Same with the powertrain. It's your basic Chevy small block in there. You can buy anything from soup to nuts for this thing, and it's all straightforward. There's no fancy magic here. There's no conglomeration of pieces that you know, that you wonder if they're going to work, or that you wonder if they're going to stand up. Also, the thing is, if you're not particularly mechanically inclined, if you were to take a road trip in this car and break down in Plum Coulee, you could take it to any mechanic that knows anything, and he could service this vehicle one end to the other without any qualms. There's no magic, there's no computers, there's no, it's just a real good, basic, drivable unit.
I don't really see anything here that's speaking to had to shave or shim anything for modification. I mean, this is about as stock as it gets. I mean, you even had enough room with where, of course, the original Blue Flame 6 used to fit in respect to having room for the distributor.
Yeah, isn't that cool?
It's all there. You know, and also too, like taking a look at the braking improvements. Now, obviously, you don't have the floor mount master cylinder that you used to have on something like this. So going to the power brake booster there as well, Corvette style master cylinder. This is definitely going to stop and handle so much better than 1954 ever could.
Oh, absolutely. And with, like I say, without a bunch of muss and fuss. Like, the way I look at it is GM did millions of dollars worth of engineering to get this platform to work. How am I going to make it better by buying, you know, catalog parts? I mean, we're going with a proven formula here, and to make the to achieve the aesthetic part here, to make it look like what the customer wants. Hey, we're batting 1,000.
I'm kind of curious what the customer is thinking about, especially with the box and back, because the one thing that, of course, is very unique about this truck is the fact that we're, well, dealing with a long box on something like this, and that's, you don't tend to see that quite a bit.
No, and the reason here is a specific one. He is going to use this as a tow vehicle of sorts. He does a lot of mileage in his current vehicle. And he's going to be wanting to have it to be a useful truck as well. We've retained the entire depth of the box. There's a lot of carrying capacity here. We're also talking about putting an oversized tank so that he has a lot more fuel range. Also, we're talking, like I say, a tow vehicle, possibly a toolbox, some parts, like I say, towing his boat. So it's going to be a real functional, feasible unit. And what happened here, this was the Chevy's, again, complete stock length in the frame on this truck. The box is off of a 1-ton that we've actually shortened 7 inches. So, but it gives you that little extra capacity, and it seems much more practical. And the emphasis on this truck would be usability and practicality. Also, it's kind of a different look. Everybody does this, the short box, hot rod type of things. This, what we're going for, is much more a flavor of a restored old truck, but again, with modern underpinnings. We're going with a very traditional color on the thing. It's going to look like it could have been a factory color. The body is going to look, you know, there's no shaved handles, there's no chopped top, it's all very subtle. And the fellow in question isn't a kid. I mean, I'm not going to tell you how old he is because he'd hit me, but you know, the thing is, it will suit the purpose, and it'll suit his idea of what he wants in a truck. So that's what, to me, custom is really all about, is to fill that particular niche.
Well, I absolutely love, of course, the old 5-window cabs, you know, so that, I mean, it's such an amazing look for these particular trucks. But I got to ask the question, how functional is that box floor going to be? Because I see so many guys, of course, go with the 17 coats of lacquer on oak, and I mean, it's nice, but you never want to put anything in it.
Yeah, we're not going quite that far with this. It will be a wood floor to retain the originality of it, but it's going to be a functional wood floor. It's not going to be some kind of Australian ebony or something silly like that. It's going to be a very functional box with painted dividing strips between the wood. So again, it'll be nicer than factory, but it's not over-the-top show quality kind of a thing. Again, the thing with this truck is functional, you know, purpose. It's going to be a usable working truck, and if you got to throw something in the box, you're not going to worry about it, kind of a thing.
So maybe a little bit of Line-X coating on the sides to keep it.
Could even go there, yeah. It could even go there, and you know, so we're focusing much more on functional than flash, you know, on this one. So.
Well, you know, speaking of something flashy, I remember a certain Impala. A certain two-door hardtop Impala by the name of California Dreamin', and we understand that the dream is continuing.
Yes, it is. California Dreamin' is a car that first showed in 09. Actually first in 08 in a semi-finished condition, then in 09 at the Grand National Roadster Show in Pomona. It was a car that I painted with Gene Winfield, who is just a tremendous individual who's become a real inspiration to me. And I've been fortunate enough to develop a relationship with him. I consider him a friend, and I think he does the other way as well. And tremendous mentor, tremendous person. Anyway, he had at the point of building this car and painting the car, he had actually offered me employment at his place. Unfortunately, the politics at I'm Canadian.
Yeah, that was strike 3.
Right there, yeah, there you go. Didn't work out, and that was a huge part of California Dreamin', and the name kind of reflected that. It was a childhood fantasy, and I mean that I would even ever be considered to work with Gene. It was just a phenomenal compliment to me. Unfortunately, that didn't work out, like I say, because of the politics. Now, California Dreamin', I drove the car back from California from the Grand National Show. Then I drove it to London, Ontario. I put considerable miles on the car, and it showed its wear and a few chips and that. So the way I'm looking at it, that dream has kind of been done. We're redoing the car. I'm repainting the car. I may be doing it in conjunction with Gene again. I may be doing it on my own. I'm not quite sure how that's going to play out. The theme will be similar, but it'll be a fresh car again. And it's gone from California Dreamin' to the new iteration of Dream On, because the dream does continue and the program does continue.
The dream never dies. Let's go take a peek at where you're at.
I don't know if you want to see this.
It's okay. This is how it all happens. Well, the one thing that, of course, you're obviously going to see the second that you look at California Dreamin' is some of the incredible sculpting that's been done here. Now, I mean, anyone who's spent any time around a 1960 Chevy knows that, well, the hood and the trunk lid did not extend over the fenders. So, I mean, that's one of the really cool fabrication pieces. And like you say, in the Chip Foose style, it's got to be that type of thing that blends in perfectly and doesn't grab that obvious attention. And I think you've really nailed it here with California Dreamin'.
Well, thank you. Actually, that hood, if you mentioned the hood, that hood is actually off a 1990 Buick Skylark.
That's what you salvaged that out of?
Yeah.
Wow.
Including the mechanism. Then I added the Chevy fender tops. No, it wasn't a Skylark. It was a Buick, a full
LeSabre.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Oh, so
they flip forward.
Right, the weirdo LeSabre flip. But also what's, of course, flipping here, even under the dust, is what's been done with the paint. And, you know, I mean, like I say, I know with something like this, it's always that, how do you keep kicking it up? How do you make sure it doesn't get pushed into the background?
Well, one of the portions of that, too, is if you drive them, they do get chips and they do get marks, and and especially on a paint job like this, it becomes a little bit tough to touch up a Winfield color fade. And this car has, to me, had its day, shall we say. I'd like to redo it. I like the car. I like a lot of things about it. But I think it's time to move on with it and to freshen it up. And so that is what we're doing now. We're removing the Gene Winfield paint job, and we are possibly going to replace it with another Gene Winfield paint job. We need to figure out a timeline and that, and see if that's going to become feasible. The man is 85 years old, so it's you know, he's a busy guy too, and I don't know if I'm going to be able to swing that. But either or, it's going to come back. Probably a little more flashy than it was this last time around. Similar but different. It's going to be a fresh approach on another project. And I've always, when I started building the car, there were so many things. What if I do it this way? And what if I do it this way? Now I get a chance to do some of those things both ways, and that's kind of cool. So I get another kick at it.
The other thing too here is that there's been some serious chassis updates on this particular car, and we understand that the X-frame has been X'd out.
X'd out, completely X'd out. This is sitting on a complete GM platform. It's a full frame out of an 86 Chevy Caprice, complete with all stock GM suspensions. They are, in this case, the heavy-duty ones, the police package, the 11-inch brakes, the big sway bars.
So a 9C1 package.
That's what it was.
Very nice.
And so it handles really, really well. Like I say, I've drove this car home from California and I'm again out to London, Ontario. It rides and drives like an 86 Caprice, good or bad as that may be. It's a great car on the highway.
Well, I've driven the old X-frame cars, and I have to admit that as much as it was the frame underneath the Chevys and the Canadian Pontiacs from 58 to 64, there's just something about the wiggle and the flex.
Yeah, they were way too flexible. This conversion has made it much more rigid, and you've lost a lot of that movement that they get. And
also, you actually got a rail here.
Absolutely,
in case something ever happens to the side.
Yeah, it's structurally a lot more sound than the original ones were. So.
The Road Trip is driven by your neighborhood Cooper Medallion tire dealers. More than 40 Manitoba locations. Online at coopertire.com. Hi, I'm Michael Clark from The Road Trip. You know, it's hard to believe, but there will come a day when this new truck doesn't look so new anymore. Maybe it's got mechanical issues, maybe it's just plain tired. And a lot of people have to ask themselves, what do you do with it that could really make a difference in the life of a child? Well, there actually is a solution, and it's got to do with the Road Trip cars that care. Here's how it works. Let's say you've got an unwanted vehicle. It can be a car, it can be a truck, it could even be a boat. All you have to do is call Associated Auto Auction at 895-9790. Tell them that you want to donate your vehicle to the Road Trip Cars That Care in support of the Hunger for Hope program at Winnipeg Harvest. Now you're probably wondering what Hunger for Hope is about. Well, the smallest victims of hunger, of course, being babies that need the most important nutrition in their developing lives. And that means that they need the proper baby formula to help them develop. So to do that, we actually have to get the funds to make sure that they're able to buy that baby formula. It can't be donated. So this is the way that we do it with unwanted vehicles like this. So call them at 895-9790. Associated Auction will do a free pickup for you, and then you get a tax receipt once that vehicle sells for the actual sale price at the auction. Now, if you've got questions, you can send us an email at honkyourhorn@live.ca. And remember, no child should go to bed hungry. Well, Pete, you know, when I first walked in the shop and I saw what looked to be a 48 to 54 Chevy or GMC something. But then I looked a little closer, and I think the immediate tell was the frame of the windshield, which definitely looked a lot newer school. And then it just kind of got even more interesting from there. So, you know what? I know there's a really wild story to this, so let's get into this particular build of, well, I guess in a way, your own Chevy SSR.
That's what people say, oh, you're trying to build an SSR. Well, the beginning of this project predates the SSR, so they copied me. I didn't copy them.
Well, get the money from them.
Well, they must have snuck in or something. I don't know what they did. But this is another iteration of a 48. This particular one was started as a 48, this time on an S10 chassis, which is a much more popular conversion with these things. But what I did, rather than just using the chassis, I used the floor pan, the firewall, and the windshield as well, and worked that into it. Almost everything else has been changed to the 48 sheet metal or fabricated from there. This truck is in its final, whenever final becomes, whenever it happens. This is actually, it's my truck. And it's been an ongoing project. It was my daily driver, and until I started messing with it, and you see what's happened. But what I've done is it's going to be a removable hard top where you can take the top with you. The pickup box is going to have a permanent hard cover, and it'll lift backwards pneumatically, so you can store the top as a one-piece unit under in the box to share that with the fuel tank. We've also cut up everything. The hood now opens backwards. It's on a BMW mechanism, the older style BMW mechanism. It's a 400 small block with probably more power than any sane human would ever need. The rest is cosmetic, obviously, but you can see there the firewall is the modified S10 variant. Again, these things with the swaps available, all the kits available, there's actually a direct bolt-in kit for a small block into an S10 chassis, so that was very simple. And again, the suspension is stock. It's not any fancy aftermarket stuff. Again, it's intended to be a driver. The only thing that we had modified in the suspension was the addition of airbags, of air springs to change the height, to change the ride height.
The other thing you have to, of course, remember when you're dealing with these types of tight tolerances, and the one thing I noticed on the other side with, of course, the steering shaft is that, wow, you got to really make sure you got the right headers.
Yeah, and they've come a long way with that. Those are actually store-bought headers, and they work fantastic. I can't remember the brand of them offhand, or I would certainly advertise. I think they were Hedman, so I'll give Hedman credit anyway.
Well, I mean, certainly, you know, the sculpting under here is exquisite. And the one thing I noticed too, of course, is that in respect to this, you're kind of bent on making things open different ways than they started stock. And I can see that up front here with the doors, and looks as though we're going to have the old school suicide.
Yeah, if you actually, this one here, this is what I've done is I've eliminated the cowl, the cowl panel that went between the door and the hood edge. I've extended the door 10 inches to, and you know, everybody does hidden handles. I've incorporated flush mount handles out of a newer car, just put them in backwards, so you've got the functionality of that. the door does open backwards. There's lots of room to get into the thing. I'm also incorporating a newer style of inner panel. These are actually Chevy Equinox, but this is all going to flow as a roadster type of a deal. So yeah, you've got that thing. I've got the kind of, there's not really a provision for windows in here, so it's more of a roadster feel than would normally be. But like I say, there is going to be a top on it, and there will be, for lack of a better version, a form of side curtain that will make it, you can enclose it. That's in the development stages right at this point.
I love the way that what you've done here is the sculpting in respect to the bucket seats. This totally speaks to me of the original Corvettes.
Yeah, absolutely. The waterfall effect in behind there in the seats and that. I always love that. And that will, you can't see for all the paper and stuff in there right now, but it will flow into a console that will tie into the dash, which is incidentally out of a 1958 Edsel that's been narrowed 9 inches. So it's just all these cool elements that a lot of these cars had, and if you put them together in a different sequence or in a different scenario, a lot of them work rather well together. And you know, just you can incorporate so many cool elements in the you know, just just by looking at what's available. Really, a lot of stuff.
Well, and also too, I mean, a lot of different new school things. You know, I did notice the old Auroras that you had outside, and it appears that they're here for the purposes of scuttling a lot of their very high-end features at the time. Yeah,
actually, these mirrors here are Aurora. They're heated power mirrors, and I love the shape of them, the way they go with the rest of this. This stuff here, and other than that, like, I mean, peep mirrors are cool and they're probably more old school, but these are so much more functional and you can actually see something out of them. So I mean, there's all kinds of stuff out there that you can scavenge that really you can, you know, that'll really work well. I mean, and again, it's personal taste. Some guys say, it's too new for this truck and for what you're doing, and I'm going, well, hey, your opinion.
Usually the guy who's complaining about it doesn't have anything that he can show off either. So.
Show me yours, yeah.
Now, I'm looking here in the way that you've got, of course, this set up with the box, and, you know, it definitely looks like you're going to have more than enough room to actually stow that top out of place. And also, the air ride itself, you know, definitely, it's come a long way in respect to just basically making the car dance. It really can improve the riding dynamics, and especially for something like this that can definitely have some considerable weight when you're done.
Yeah. See, actually, those springs need to be modified a little bit, as in a lot of things. As you change one thing, another thing needs to be changed. Those need to be relocated slightly, just for those of you that are watching. They're saying, that guy put the springs in wrong. But what we've got here is we've got ladder bars. There's a lot of drag race influence in this thing. It's a Ford 9-inch, a narrowed Ford 9-inch to handle whatever that motor is going to put out. But we are going to re-engineer the spring effect, and all they will essentially do, the air springs, is replace the actual springs. We could essentially put actual coil springs in there and achieve the whole thing, but without the adjustability. So, you know, it's a whole evolutionary process in a lot of these vehicles. And again, this thing, the intention here is, once it's done, is to for the thing to be completely drivable, to completely feasible, and also be legal. That's something that's becoming more and more of an issue with people in that. And I like to build all my cars so that you're not going to get hassled with them, that there are realistic cars that you can drive, that are reliable, and that are, you know, maybe a little bit over the top, but definitely something you can use. Because my way of thinking, unless it's $1 million car, it don't belong on a trailer, or unless it's broken. That's the other thing. So.
Well, build them right, and a no-hassle Sunday night.
That's what they say.
I'm taking a look at the back here too, and I have to admit, you know, something that kind of is working really well with what I'm seeing is the fact that you've still following much of the traditional rail of the 48 to 54 box, but this piece here, it's kind of speaking to me in the realm of the fiberglass bodied Cameo carriers of the 50s, just the way that you've got the slope here. And you know, I mean, this is, you know, believe me, I don't think the SSR went far enough.
You're in a way, but they had to produce it, so that cut a lot of corners for them, and that's unfortunate, I guess. This, to me, I think I don't know if you're familiar with a guy by the name of Frank DeRosa. He's an old school, definitely old school customizer from Southern California, and his big thing was, you don't need all those fancy tools you can buy, get all these shapes out of the record. Well, one time you could, and this is a combination of a lot of that. What you see here really is a 48 Chevy box. This is the hood off of a 68 Satellite, and this is the hood off of 66 Pontiac, or portions thereof. Now,
there it is.
Yeah,
In
there
fact,
it is.
I can actually even see a little bit of that line there.
Yeah, that's what it is. And a lot of the influence from this came from a combination of the Rod and Custom Dream Truck back in the day and the crossover some of the Copper Cart. I don't know if you remember that, but they had the rounded kind of look thing happen. Of course, the Dream Truck had the fins, but in its original version, the Dream Truck rear end looked similar, very similar to this. Without some of the detail, I guess. And I've stolen a bit of Frank DeRosa's thing here by using existing panels. And this, for instance, this area here, this is going to be the fuel filler flap is going to come up here, and that tank that's sitting over there will fit back here. It's a 30-gallon tank, so it'll give you a little bit of mileage. And yes, there is sufficient reinforcement and security for that tank back there. A Mack truck would have to hit it before it'd ever get to the tank. So it's built good and strong, believe me, back there.
So where does this one figure in the dream sequence? Or is this approaching nightmare?
No, not nightmare. It's an extended dream. It's a long dream. It's I first started messing with my daily driver in 1995 with this one. And that kind of concerned me till there's a fellow out there, he's in Southern California right now, a guy by the name of Gary Choppett. Gary Fueto is his name. You call him Gary Choppett. And he debuted his own first personal driver after a 21-year build, because he was also building other cars for everybody else. So I kind of console myself in that fact. 95, 205, I'm fast approaching that, so I better get my act together. But yes, I will one day get this thing done.
And now it's time for Road Trip Trivia. In what year did the last Studebaker roll off the Canadian assembly line? Email your answer to honkyourhorn@live.ca. The winner will receive a deluxe engine shampoo from Blue Ocean Auto and Boat Detailing. A clean engine runs better. Plus, a $50 gift pack of Manitoba Lottery's Scratch to Win tickets. Well, Pete, want to thank you once again for inviting us out to DMK Customs. And like I say, whether it's British, German, or otherwise, you definitely have got a great touch. And we're looking forward to seeing the completion of these vehicles. You mind if we come back to see some of them when they're ready to be unveiled?
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime you're ready, give me a heads up and I'm here.
Fantastic. Well, folks, if you've got questions, thoughts, or feelings about any type of vehicle, classic or modern, send an email to honkyourhorn@live.ca. I'm Michael Clark. Keep the shiny side up and the rubber side down. The Road Trip is driven by your neighborhood Cooper Medallion tire dealers. More than 40 Manitoba locations. Online at coopertire.com. Hi, I'm Michael Clark from The Road Trip. You know, it's hard to believe, but there will come a day when this new truck doesn't look so new anymore. Maybe it's got mechanical issues, maybe it's just plain tired. And a lot of people have to ask themselves, what do you do with it that could really make a difference in the life of a child? Well, there actually is a solution, and it's got to do with the Road Trip Cars That Care. Here's how it works. Let's say you've got an unwanted vehicle. It can be a car, it can be a truck, it could even be a boat. All you have to do is call Associated Auto Auction at 895-9790. Tell them that you want to donate your vehicle to the Road Trip Cars That Care in support of the Hunger for Hope program at Winnipeg Harvest. Now, you're probably wondering what Hunger for Hope is about. Well, the smallest victims of hunger, of course, being babies that need the most important nutrition in their developing lives. And that means that they need the proper baby formula to help them develop. So to do that, we actually have to get the funds to make sure that they're able to buy that baby formula. It can't be donated. So this is the way that we do it with unwanted vehicles like this. So call them at 895-9790. Associated Auction will do a free pickup for you, and then you get a tax receipt once that vehicle sells for the actual sale price at the auction. Now, if you've got questions, you can send us an email at honkyourhorn@live.ca. And remember, no child should go to bed hungry.
The opinions expressed on the program you have just watched are not necessarily those of Shaw Cable Systems or of this station. Through our access policy, we provide the opportunity for community groups and individuals to express their points of view.